What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 23 of the Melee Stats podcast. I'm your returning host, Edwin Budding.
Hey, I'm Gimme That Wheat.
I'm Ambi Sinister.
And I am Aiden, or Calvin.
So, just special note, Aiden is the first returning special guest on the show. So,
the biggest news today.
Yeah, the biggest. No, so I broke my hiatus to come back because Armada has left Melee Singles. The greatest player of all time announced earlier today that he had lost motivation for playing and he had accomplished everything that he really wanted to do in his career. So he's going to continue to play doubles with his brother Android. But as far as Melee Singles, if we take his word for what it is right now, he's no longer going to be competing. So I guess the first topic discussion I want to bring with you guys is how is this 2018 so far? Like, where would you guys put it?
Like as of right now, I'm pretty confident in saying that he's a top 3 player. If the ballot were to end today, it's very possible that I might have him as number 1. I think definitely going into a future super major that he would have been seeded number 1. But
yeah, I would agree with that.
Now that's not really a way to look at it, I guess. But I think that he definitely is the current hottest player right now.
I don't know if I would say hottest player, but I mean, I know he won SmashCon and everything, but I think like the way Melee was right now is that at the top, like you said, Armada seems like a pretty safe pick for top 3, if not guaranteed top 3. But it was between like him, Leffen, and HBox in this weird kind of rock, paper, scissors, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think personally, like, I would probably put Armada at like the number 2 or number 3 right now. It's hard, given the recent performances. Like, he won SmashCon, but he won it over like Mewtwo King. But he beat HBox at that tournament?
Oh, he
yeah, he did.
He beat him through a wall.
Yeah. I only caught the end of SmashCon, so I couldn't remember.
Yeah, SmashCon was the Hungry Box Texas Watch Finals tournament.
I woke up in the middle of set 2 of Grand, so
that's pretty funny.
But yeah, he beat HBox at that tournament, but then Leffen's performance was like super, super dominant at EVO. I think it's worth noting that Armada isn't even number 1 in Sweden right now, according to their power ranking. But there is a dynamic to be considered when you think about the results against HBox. Leffen did manage to beat HBox at EVO, but best of 3, and he definitely squeezed by until that third game. So I don't know. I think it's like pretty debatable, and I wouldn't like confidently put him at number 1, but it's like also hard to say where the other 2 people would fall.
Yeah, I think that's the current state of Melee right now, is that it's hard to really have any confidence in specific spots within the top 6. Like, we can kind of tear them off, and then we kind of know who's who, and we know that Mango's 6th. I think we're pretty confident of that.
Ranking wise.
But other than that, I don't think there's really any confidence, and especially for the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also depends on like what range of tournaments you're allowing for this, and like which actually matter and which are how heavily you value recency. I think seeding wise, him and Leffen are very competitive.
Yeah,
especially like recently, Leffen's been like super, super solid. Like he's gotten like. He got second at Locher City. He won Evo and Air. Armada did win SmashCon, but like Leffen wasn't at that. Or I guess like he was at that, but he DQ'd out. So, so it's like they're pretty close. I probably would rank Armada higher because he's been more consistent throughout the year compared to Leffen. But it is really close. And like Hungrybox is another interesting one because he had a really strong start to the year. But he sort of petered out a little bit recently, and his SmashCon left a lot to be desired. His Evo was like kind of just okay. But his record's really good because he had such a strong start to the year, and he goes to so many random smaller events that these other guys don't go to.
Yeah.
So, I think it depends on if you're trying to do like a summer rank to now type of ranking, or if you're trying to do like a year to date type of ranking. I think they would yield slightly different lists, and it's also different if you're talking about seeding, or if you're talking about ranking, which we'll get into later for obvious reasons.
Yeah. What if you were talking about the Melee Stats PR?
Yeah, I wonder when that's coming out. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Wheat?
The Melee Stats PR is it's a list of the top 25 players made by the brightest minds of Melee Stats.
The brightest.
The brightest minds of Melee, and it's a list
rivaled only by Aiden rank.
Yeah, Aiden rank coming out at the end of the year. I will be ranking the top 500 players, and it will not be questioned.
Yeah, I mean, MSPR is just us talking about how great we think like fiction is or something. The specific time period, which I don't think we've announced yet, is Smash and Splash until DreamHack Austin. So this like really falls into the period where Armada is doing really well.
Wait, sorry, Smash and Splash until when?
DreamHack Montreal. Did I say Austin?
Yeah, you said Austin. I'm like, dude, that's a really fucking short period. That's actually one weekend.
we're just one weekend way far back. We've had a lot of time to think about this.
It took us 3 months to really evaluate it, but we figured out who are the best players of this weekend. One is Armada because he won the event.
Yeah, that's. Well, go ahead.
Sorry, go on, Ambi.
Well, this is like, I think that like if you look at this, I think that Leffen and Armada become really, really competitive in this time period because they both sort of destroyed everyone within this time period, and Hungrybox definitively did not do that.
Yeah, this was his worst 3-month stretch of the year so far.
I think like if I had to seed and like given that period, like I don't know what you guys are going to decide, but given that period, or if I had to seed a tournament right now, like it would probably be Leffen, Armada, HBox.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially
there's definitely consistent
the prestige of Evo and the fact that SmashCon sort of just came like at a really awkward time where a lot of players didn't want to compete. I don't know how much you would count that, but I think that that's pretty important. The fact that Leffen won Evo is, I think, such a huge deal that would probably affect the seeding pretty substantially. So I think I agree in general.
I want to ask, I guess this is, I was going to ask this directly to you, but this is pretty good for the panel. But is there any universe in which by the end of 2018, maybe whoever wins the Big House, whoever wins Summit, whoever wins GTX, let's say it's super varied, and let's say that like Plup wins one of them, but he beats Mango twice or something to win. Let's say that like Zane wins one of them, or that Wizzy beat. Let's say it just the year of parity and high variance in Melee continues. Is there a universe in which Armada, even after his retirement, finishes #1 in SSBM rank?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think that the record that he currently holds on Hungrybox is very good for his standings, and he's the only person to win 2 large events, as far as I know, with multiple gods going. I could be, I mean, depending on how big you want to call it event. But Smash and Splash and SmashCon are the 2 biggest ones that anyone has won. You know, you have people who won like one really big one, and then a couple small ones, or HBox who've won a couple like medium-sized ones. So just looking at it like that, I can definitely see it. I think his retirement kind of hurts him in a way, just because there's such a finality to announcing your retirement. Where I think if he just kind of said that he's going to sit the next couple events out, and maybe come back later or something like that, I think that maybe his rank would even be higher in some people's eyes. It's kind of something similar when people think about how to rank Crush, who's definitely gone to like the same amount of events or more events than someone like Santi or Triff, who might be ranked, but maybe go to more like the same amount of tournaments just over a bigger period of time. So it'll be interesting to see, like, psychologically how people view Armada's retirement from a ranking standpoint. But
And I will
can
say
definitely
that,
see a world where he's number one.
and there is precedent for something similar-ish to this happening. In the second half of 2013, Mango did go to events, but he would play Falcon, he would play Marth, play very little Fox or Falco, and whenever he did, it was usually at a lot, like, much smaller events where he would actually lose them to Mutaking. But nonetheless, his Evo victory and results from the spring to summer were so impressive that despite him being less seriously active, and despite him, by all accounts, at whatever he attended in the second half of the year, not having as good of a year, he still finished number one because the prestige of what he had accomplished was already so high. And I just think that it'll be really interesting if, like, 5 years after that, like, Armada has something similar, even if he doesn't go to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the circumstances are a little different because Mango was doing it at a time of Melee's revival, whereas Armada, he's doing it in kind of the post honeymoon phase, which
I think it's definitely, like, the easy thing to say about that statement is that, well, there's so much different in Melee than there used to be in regards to, like, how many big tournaments there were and what people went to what. But it's might not be as big of a difference looking at this year in particular, because the events that we have coming up, we know that there's the Big House, we know that there's Summit, and as far as that, we really don't know who's going to GTX, if it's going to be another event with multiple gods, if it's going to be a super major, if it's going to be a major.
Don't
park.
Aiden's hoping for.
But for the most part, we really have 2 confirmed events that will have the gods attending. So it's not crazy to think that Armada not attending 2 tournaments like that would not affect them that much.
I also think it's not crazy if when evaluating those 2 events, that's the question that's going to be in the back of people's minds, that Armada didn't show up, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's unfair of voters to consider. Like, if Zane wins Big House without Armada attending, or if he wins Summit without Armada attending, don't you think people, and maybe it's unfair, but don't you think people will have that in the back of their minds that those 2 didn't play?
I think Zane is a really interesting example.
That's actually my least favorite thing about this retirement right now, is the fact that Zane never got to beat him. Because he's, like, clearly the next up and coming player to, like, enter that top echelon. But Armada is, well, he hasn't beaten Mewtwo either, right?
Zane hasn't beaten Mewtwo, no.
But Armada retiring, it like removes that opportunity altogether. So we'll never, like, see it happen, even if Zane becomes capable by the end of the.
Yeah, no, I agree.
This is actually so we're going a little out of order on the topics here, but I think this perfectly segues into a discussion on sort of what Melee's future has ahead of it without Armada. And this is not saying that obviously Armada leaving the game as its greatest player ever and arguably best player right now does kind of put a damper on future events. But from a competitive variety standpoint, this opens up a lot, both good and bad, for the future of Melee, in terms of the new guard overcoming the old guard, in terms of even bracket potential. Like, what is that? Where do we start with this? Are we going to talk about how Wizzy and Zane have a better, like, a more favorable path? Because that is something inevitable that comes out of Armada's retirement.
Yeah, I mean, like, so there's so many players and so many players of so many different characters that could succeed that really just they run into Armada, and that's why they can't really, like, make deep bracket runs or win. But I think, like, it's not that crazy, because there's a big Venn diagram of, like, players who would do well if Armada retired, and then the other side is players who would do well if HBox retired. And, like, the middle is just, like, everyone. There's, like, Zane and Wizzy on the one side, but, like, I don't know. There's not a lot of people who I'm like, okay, well, Armada was the only person keeping them back. But yeah, I think you are right with your examples. Zane and Wizzy definitely have an easier time now.
I think for most people, HBox is actually the more considerable barrier in a way. I think it's, like, Swedish kind of, like, proved that to me. I think Armada has felt more beatable, even if he wasn't losing to a lot of people this year than ever. And I don't. Maybe it's because of and overcoming him finally, and Zane all of a sudden doing really, really well. But I still at this time had more faith in someone overcoming and beating Armada than I do in someone beating HBox.
Nuts.
Yeah, I don't know if I really agree with that.
I think it's so player dependent.
In the current moment, in the past, I don't even think I would have agreed with that sentiment at the beginning of the year. But I think upsetting HBox right now seems so much less realistic than upsetting Armada in the current state of the game. In the past,
it depends on how big of an upset that we're talking. I think for a Swedish tier player, it does feel like that, especially now. But I do think that if you look at Armada throughout the last year, he's gotten fourth one time. The entire rest of his tournament results have been at least at losers finals, if not grand finals.
It is pretty fucking wild.
And
could you guys imagine if he'd gotten 13th at even? I actually think that.
Yeah, that'd have been so fucking weird.
It would have been so messed up. Oh my god!
I don't know what I would have done.
When's the last time
I was watching that in front of a Mewtwo King fan who was doing the Tiger Woods fist bump every time Armada dared, or every time Mewtwo King dared Armada. It was
I think fist bump though.
Yeah, I would have just left. I would have walked out.
Literally, the only two tournaments that he has on SSB Wiki that are that low are ELGX where he forfeited.
Oh yeah,
and get smashed at the Foundry 41 to 2015.
Oh nice.
So fun fact. This will be. I'll just quickly mention this. As far as major tournaments that Armada entered and did not drop out of because of controller issues or whatever, there's 53 majors that Armada attended and fully competed in, and 53 placings of at least 5th place, which is just bonkers to me.
And only a couple of those are 5th, right?
I think
only 2. Who can tell me the 2?
I can, but
we go.
No, let's make this competitive.
Isn't Gommel 2016 one of them?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know the other one. No,
Paragon
wait.
Orlando.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he lost to HBox and Leffen. Who did he lose to at Gommel? It was Leffen and
HBox.
HBox, yeah, wow.
No. He lost to Mango.
At Paragon Orlando? No.
No. At Gommel.
Oh, I thought you said
16. It was Mango and Leffen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it was Mango. Yeah.
That Leffen, the Paragon Orlando set, I think Leffen Armada at that tournament is still my favorite set ever.
Really?
That's interesting.
It's a good one.
I think it's aged a little bit over time, but it's a turning point in the fuck. But that's a whole other topic.
That's a chapter for his book.
Speaking of which, book history, Armada's legacy. I'm gonna drop some facts for you guys right now, all right? And then we can kind of keep this as an open discussion. But through Armada's career, 21 first places, 17 second places, 7 third places, 6 fourth places, 2 fifth places in his career. So there's obviously a lot to dissect. But you're the Peach player here, so I want to hear your thought. I don't want to ask a question what does Armada mean to you? But sort of what do you think stood out more? There's so many directions you could go in this, but from your perspective, what do you think stands out especially about Armada more than literally any other Peach ever? Just for people that aren't as well versed.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to have a ton of insight into what particularly makes him a lot better, but it's like talking to Puff players about HBox. The way that Armada plays matchups isn't the way that Peach should play a matchup. It's the way that Armada should play the matchup. It's really funny. I remember seeing Loud one time talking on stream about how to beat Pikachu. And his game plan that he was talking about was completely different than Armada's game plan if you watch his matches versus Axe, which is just dash dancing and power shield down smash. And the thing is that Armada can do so many things that other people aren't able to do because they're just not Armada. I remember for a while being mad that no Sheiks would DI my down tilts Armada. When he hit them, he always hits this perfect down tilt into up air. But I mean, it's all just about there's this in-game and out-game aspect where you're just so scared to play against Armada, and he knows exactly what to do against someone like that. I mean, it's just, I think there's such an Armada thing that only Armada could do, and I think that comes across in his Peach play a lot. Sorry if that's not very in depth.
No, I think that was a good answer. Thank you. Yeah, I think also one really interesting thing is how his Fox will be remembered. Like it's so crazy to me that like obviously this is along with Leffen's Fox, but like you think of people that like really push the Fox metagame, or at least within the specific matchup of the Fox Ditto, like the fact that Armada's Pocket Fox like soon became just this deadly force that was both like is both a catalyst for how Fox Ditto's developed and how Fox Puff developed. I mean, Ambi, you can talk more about this than I can, but I'm sure you have thoughts.
I mean, it's kind of a broad question. Like, what did Armada like? Armada definitely brought a lot to the character, at least in the matchups that he plays that character in. Mm-hmm. There's just like a lot of optimization he did that people just didn't do, and it's sort of wild thinking like about how many staples just in a lot of Fox's game plans just have Armada's or Leffen's name on them. You know, like both of them sort of jointly changed a lot about how the game is played. Armada's use of platforms, like I think, really changed the way a lot of people attack matchups. Punish game stuff about Armada Shine is like a really obvious example, but like even smaller stuff like upper follow-ups, like doing up air tech chase on a platform and then like run off nair to regrab instead of doing like a forward air or something. There's like a bunch of little situations where Armada just has like really crazy little solutions to that just no one had labbed out. And it's like it's a real testament to like the kind of work that Armada does in characters. It was all very useful and very purposeful, and he had good uses for everything. So I mean, you need to like I could probably talk about like random shit that Armada did that was really good, but it's like kind of a broad question. Like he just changed the character so much.
What do you think? So I guess to make it a little more specific, if you had to nail like one thing that Armada did as Fox that was very different than what the other Fox players of the time did, that they soon began adopting, what would you say it is? Like obviously the Armada Shine is like what
it's like a really weird question, because like I feel like just like a lot of what Armada did was just figure stuff out.
What situations did he
really good answer
solutions for?
Like I don't know, punish game tree. Like that's like a really Armada thing to say, right? Like he was just really good at really hurting you when he got an opening against you. Like his neutral game was top notch, and he just had really good ideas about what to do. He doesn't have like that like crazy, insane Fox bravado that a lot of spacey players have. He was just doing good shit all the time. The question's still a little broad. I don't really know what to say, but
that's okay. I think you gave enough at least. One thing I want to bring up is that I think it's and Ambi, you and I talk about this all the time. We talked about this before the show, but like when I think Armada, I just kind of think of like what he embodies for Melee overall, in terms of like what he symbolizes. Like his breakout in America, Genesis, is like widely heralded as like the greatest tournament ever, and I think it's fitting that it's for the best player ever, Armada, and for the best rivalry of all time, him versus Mango. And it's just like crazy to me that there was a time when people just thought like Peach could not win. Like Armada coming from a foreign country to an open bracket in America, which is like something that's not really like if you look at other esports, like that the story of Armada like may not have happened in a lot of other like competitive games. So, but like you could branch off in so many different ways of why it matters. Like it could be the development of a character that people didn't think and still don't think is top tier. Like it could be talking about like this guy coming from a foreign country, barely able to speak English, like going in there and clutching out sets over everyone. It's just like entering a grassroots tournament where like there was a huge risk to him not winning that tournament or not finishing second at least, right? Like if he doesn't get some of his money back, he spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to go to America and just lose. Like he could have been wrong. he could have actually sucked. And the fact that he went there and he didn't suck, he was actually just as good as pretty much everyone else there. It's so Melee that a literal urban legend could come to Genesis and beat everyone and finish second.
Yeah, just speaking briefly about Genesis, I think that it's like a really good example of the way that he changed Fox. I think is a really similar way to the way that he changed Peach. I think that Peach ended up being really different from when Armada played and from before Armada played him. Like probably my favorite single example of this is just like not an Armada set at all from Genesis 1, but I think it's Zelic versus Lucky. I don't know if you guys remember that set. It was sick set from Genesis 1. And I just remember, like, you know, Zelic gets a counter pick, and he takes Lucky to Pokemon Stadium. And I just think, like, that's so funny to me. Like, in hindsight, like, you know, like, oh, I can't go FD. Like, FD's really good for Fox. I'll go Stadium. like, what are you thinking, bro? But, like a lot of what Peach did it's just not the same as Peach ended up doing after Armada touched the character. And I think that like that's just a really good example of like what Armada did for the game. I think that he just like really transformed like the way that a lot of people thought correct stuff and you know clean Melee was like in the game. Which is probably like why my answer with Fox was so vague. Like he just like transformed the character in like a really dramatic way. And you know he did the same with Peach so many years ago.
It sounds really basic, but it's kind of like even if just looking at like the speed and control of his character back then, it was so impressive compared to every other Peach. Like Pink Shinobi was not moving that fast. Like he didn't have as good control over his character. Zelic definitely was not. And it's very like I've made this comparison before, and I've gone back and forth about it, but it's very like Bomb Soldier-esque, like showing the like potential of a character and like what you can do in Melee. It's so ridiculous that when people think of like the best Melee sets of all time, the Genesis set that's between a Peach and a Puff, and like Armada.
Yeah, it's wild how good of a set that is.
Yeah, and it's two characters that people. I mean, I guess people then were starting to realize how good Puff was, but like no one thought Peach was going to be in grand finals of that tournament, let alone from winner side. And that to me is what I remember Armada for, and I'm gonna miss like seeing him around because I always get reminded of that from him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also remember another set of during Genesis. I think it was Genesis 1. I just remember like a moment where like Wife is commentating and he's just like geeking out about Armada's edge guarding. Like he's like, dude, like of course he's not gonna let him back. He's so fucking sick at edge guarding. And he just says it in his wife voice. And
dude, do you remember like Pound 5 when it's PP versus Armada Grand Finals? Wife's volume on his commentary is like ridiculously quiet, and he's just like nerding out about Armada, but like no one can hear him. So like you'll hear Wife like speaking really quickly, like very like passionately, but suddenly he'll get like interrupted by D1 screaming like "Bear!" or just like not paying attention to him at all.
That sounds right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna ask a potentially mean question. What do you guys think the chances that Armada actually stays retired is?
High.
You think?
Yeah,
you think it's high?
Like that he's done competing in singles seriously forever. I think the chances of him never entering a singles bracket ever again are low, because you know inevitably, you know maybe like 10 years from now, he decides to like stumble to a Gothenburg weekly and enter singles for the kick.
He takes his prodigy son or whatever. His son is like 5 years old, like a complete whiz kid.
Yeah, so like I'm not gonna say like that won't happen, you know. But I think the way he's retiring this time is in a much different like setting than it was when he did it in 2013. And when he says like, oh, like I have accomplished everything that I set out to, and like my motivation has been, his motivation, like from what he's like said in various forums and like talking to him in person has been, waning for a long time. And the fact that he spent so much time in different things to try and like fix that, along with like the current climate of Melee and what he's managed to accomplish in this climate of Melee, I think he's, you know, there's like that joke about like the longer the retirement message is, the more likely they are to come back. And that's why I think it's so funny is like Otto retired and then didn't tell anyone for like basically a year and then like put out a half-assed tweet. Like, of course Otto's done. Look at that retirement message.
Yeah.
But I think the context in which that Armada makes this long video and explains his retirement, I think he's done for a while.
It definitely is
like
very
and well,
Armada.
permanently.
Yeah, so I actually have a couple of thoughts about this, but I definitely think that it really depends on the climate of Melee while he's gone, whether he'll come back or not. Because I really don't think, at least the impression that I got from watching that video is that he doesn't like the game anymore, that he doesn't even find it fun. It's just that I feel like he didn't feel like he had any challenges that he wanted to do. Like, I feel like a lot of what it must have been like to be Armada, if I can say this without like sounding too projecty, is that like in his head he was already just like clearly the greatest player of all time. And there was like every tournament was just like him defending being the greatest player of all time and either being able to do it and being relieved or not being able to do it and being like completely crushed. I think a couple things could happen that would make Armada want to come back. I think like PP coming back would be something that I think would like, and being successful. That's probably a necessary caveat. Yeah. But like if PP comes back and just starts crushing people, and like Armada thinks to himself like, man, maybe I'm not the best player of all time. Maybe PP was secretly better than me this entire time. I think he would come back in that type of situation. I think if our good friend Edwin Budding puts out another ranking and talks about how Hungrybox is the greatest player of all time, I think it's possible that it just pisses off Armada so much that he'll come back. There's a couple like little situations in which I think that he would be willing to come back. I think that the problem is that with Armada, he just ran out of intrinsic motivation for the game.
Yeah.
And the solution to that isn't really to find more intrinsic motivation. It's just to let it go until either extrinsic motivation finds you or it just never does.
Yeah.
But I think I'm a lot less confident than you are in that he'll never come back. But I think that at the very minimum, he'll be taking a very long break until something happens that makes him want to come back.
I think it's because there's like so little in my mind that would ever challenge that legacy. Because to me, like Armada isn't just he isn't the greatest Melee player of all time. He's one of the greatest esports competitors of all time.
That's fair.
Absolutely. And there's so few people in so few games that could even really challenge that title from him, in my mind. Like Flash and like Faker come to mind. And like it's sort of how you weigh.
Flash
like,
was the first guy I thought of.
Yeah, like performance I think it sort of depends like how you weigh like performance in team games. Like I would say Faker, but for like you'd have to like walk through those reasons. But I think Armada is like at near the top of the list and like debatably one, depending on like how you weight different things. And like what could really like challenge that? Like I'm also cynical about like PP coming back and doing.
I mean, I am as well, but like that's sort of a
that's a
topic.
separate.
No, but it's like a circumstance that could cause it, right? But even if PP, like, what could PP do? Like, if PP came back and was super successful, how much could he possibly do to challenge this legacy of Armada being the greatest? And I don't really see a situation where like he would. I can't even imagine what PP would have to accomplish for the legacy to be like challenged, I guess.
But I think what Ambi is saying is that Hungrybox is not that far off. Like in another year, like if HBox wins 5 or 6 more majors.
Really?
Right. So like that's I also feel that like that itching really. With this question,
he might not have to pass him. It just has to become a question among a.
Look, to me, it's like an easy question, dude. How many times has Armada gotten 9th when he tried? 0 times. 0 fucking times.
He's never even gotten 7th when he's tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks so much more than like Hungrybox winning the next fucking 8 majors.
I also think, now that I think about it, another thing that even potentially could challenge it is if Leffen just got really disgusting. Because
Yeah.
I think that Leffen, I think of the players that are still left in Melee, Leffen is probably the most likely in my head to challenge like Armada's title as an esports competitor, just because he's so good at both games. You know, Melee and DBFZ. Like I could see a future in which Leffen just becomes the clear best player in Melee, and also like a top 3, top 5 competitor at DBFZ. And like people are just
and
like,
that would
man,
be so incredibly unique because
Yeah.
like I don't think anyone ever has been able to stand at the top of like such significantly different games and like be relevant. Because like
Yeah.
Sonic Fox does it, right? But Sonic Fox is a top player in a bunch of games that are all 2D fighting.
Yeah.
And not that those games don't have distinct differences, but it'd be like if someone managed to like get to the top of like Melee and like a significantly different game, or if like fucking Flash was the best Brood War player of all time, but then he also happened to be the fucking like best DBZ player of all time.
Yeah.
And it'd be
Well,
like,
in Leffen's case, it'd be like bridging he'd be like the Song of Ice and Fire between platform fighters.
yeah, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, and like,
I mean, it depends on how you want to like really say, well, Melee is like more different than Dragon Ball Fighters than like Marvel is to Street Fighter or something. It's like you get into this weird point where like Sonic Fox is the best player in a 2D tag fighter. Is that different than the NRS games that he usually is good in, which have similar but different mechanics? It's like this point where it's just like nebulous differences, like what game is more different. But yeah, I agree with the general point that would be very interesting, and I guess I agree with the broader point that would be something that would challenge Armada's legacy in a little bit of a way.
Yeah, I just think that
Maybe this is like a stupid argument, but I feel like the differences are explained by like Sonic Fox going to a Smash 4 weekly and going 0-2, like he did like, a few weeks ago, and like a Leffen like jumping into like DBZ and becoming like a very relevant player. Like speaks more to his ability to like bridge the gap between fighting games than Sonic Fox. Like jumping from like MKX to DBZ.
I gotta say though, with Leffen, we're talking about him like being an active threat for Armada's or like getting close to where Armada is in Melee history. But you have to keep in mind like Leffen still has like 14 majors to go before he ties Armada for his career. So like I don't even think he's that particularly close for.
Well, I also feel like Armada's career was quite a bit longer than Leffen's, at least near the echelon of Melee. I think that Leffen has plenty of time to get 14 majors. Like I know it won't be quick.
Something to be considered as well is like when you talk about the greatest player of all time, it's like for Leffen to challenge that, he needs other competitors around him in the future that warrant the title, if that makes sense. Like other people will need to level up with Leffen for Leffen's wins over those people to be like, you know, those are more significant than Armada beating X people in X era.
I mean, just to point on the number of majors thing, obviously that on its own shouldn't be taken at like face value. But I do think there's something worth noting about Armada still doing well in an era with less majors and being as consistent. So like I don't think.
Well, I also feel like that's sort of disingenuous because I think that the number of people that can win majors now is much higher than it's ever been ever.
I wouldn't say like much higher. I think it's like slightly because if you look throughout Melee history, like regardless of the greater like talent pool, there's usually, like 5 or 6 people that can win.
How about in terms of Armada's career? Like if you limit like the PC Chris, like Ken as in core era, in Armada's history, I don't really think that list is super long. And I think that like Leffen came in and like wasn't even considered a top 5 player until like Apex 2015. You know what I mean? Like just in terms of like the number of players that he could potentially beat to win a major, the probability, even if you just give them all like even chances, is much lower. So I think that every major that Leffen wins in a field of so many strong players, even now with like Wizzy and Zane being like very real threats for very big tournaments. And I think this sort of segues into what I was trying to say earlier about Armada being absent, is that I think that less so that like, people are dodging Armada. More so that I think that there's so many more players now that I think could luck into really good brackets and actually end up winning majors, a la Mutant King at Shine #1.
Or I think that, like, at Summit to earlier.
Sure, yeah, that's a little bit less.
I think that's more salient.
Yeah, like if you look at like Zane, like I think Zane's beat everyone other than Armada, other than Mutant King, right? And like even if he never beats Mutant King ever again, there's like very real chance he just gets a bracket full of people he's beaten before in order to win a major. I think Wizrobe is sort of like that with Mango. Like he could just avoid Mango, and like that's not too hard these days because Mango's probably a loser's bracket. But as long as he doesn't run into Mango, like he's not going to run into Armada anymore. So like maybe he'll just win. Maybe he'll beat Hungrybox and winners and like Leffen and losers or something. I think that there's so many more players that like winning tournaments has become instantly so much more of a viable option for just because of Armada's absence. And I think that like as a result of that, like the actual winning of a major is going to become like a lot more prized. I think like the era of like the same people winning over and over again is probably coming close. If it hasn't already, just considering how ridiculous this year's been in terms of who's won what. And how evenly split round it's been. I think it's just only going to get worse without Armada here.
Like, I don't know if I agree with that.
Really? What do you think?
Just typically, or obviously, like I don't want to draw a straight comparison. I think you're right in saying that like when one juggernaut like kind of leaves the game, it sort of leaves like this open throne, right? Because it's like one stalwart who's normally reliable against the rest of the field, but. So I do see what you're saying, and I don't like disagree with any of it necessarily. I just think that like people said the same thing back around like the first revolution of like competitive gaming when Ken left, and I just think there's enough incentive today where obviously I think the competitive field is greater, and at the top level I think it's a bit better and a bit more varied, but I can't see it being like a rock paper scissors where like the value of winning of a major means that much more significantly in terms of like relation to the field. You know what I'm saying? Like I think very much at the end of this era, like we will see someone rise at the end of like this stopgap. I guess I want to say because that's what 2018 kind of feels like. It's a change.
I really don't know if I agree. Just like considering how hard it is to rank 1 through 3 right now. Like I really.
But that's right now. Like
right, but like I think
it'll. How many?
You think it will though?
Like with Armada gone, how many players does it actually? Assume everyone in the top 10 is shown. How many people, because Armada is gone, are now able to win that major that couldn't before? And I think it's 2 people. And they could have debatably won before when Armada was here. I think although it would have been
3 people, maybe 4 people.
Who do you think the third and fourth?
I think that Axe could probably do it with the right bracket. And
Axe has Plup also to worry about.
Not dude. I don't know.
Yeah, but like who else is he gonna get?
I don't know.
He's beaten Leffen. He's beaten Mango. He's beaten everyone. Like
Plup and HBox, he has to dodge like.
Yeah, he'd have to dodge HBox.
He has to dodge Army. He has to dodge arguably Swedish Delight.
I forgot about Army. It's over. Forget
that. Nintendo, Ice Climber.
Is that the real question? Can Army win a major?
That's actually.
Is Army the 4th person?
But Ambi, I want to bring
Army and Leffen grand finals.
I think Army's gonna win.
So I think I see where our foundational difference is. Like I don't see those chances of like necessarily skyrocketing that much up. And I have faith, or based on how Melee has turned out in the past, and I understand it's not a straight comparison now, but like I do think whether it's Leffen or HBox, like someone will rise from the post Armada age.
I think it depends on what you mean by rise, because like I don't think anyone's gonna reach like Armada 2016 era winning majors.
I just think it's very.
I really just don't think that's ever gonna happen like ever again.
I don't know.
Maybe not like Armada stretch of dominance, but like I could definitely see. Like you're telling me if Leffen wins Big House and Summit, or like if he wins,
I could definitely see a player becoming the best player clearly. But
like 4 majors in a row, best player clearly. Like I think that's very possible for Leffen or even HBox to return to that right now.
4 sounds like a lot, but I could see it. The thing is, I feel like the comparison is not so good because I feel like a big development that a lot of the players in the top 10 currently have had in like recent years specifically has been Punish Game. And I think that it requires so much less to actually win a set of Melee at the top level compared to ever before. The exception being against Hungrybox, which is not sort of the same. Unless you're Zane and Hungrybox doesn't DI your throws.
That's really interesting you'd say that, because I've been thinking that lately, sort of about like every level of the game, though. Like,
yeah, I definitely do think it's about every level of the game, but I just think specifically like this whole like you only need to win 4. Like that's like a big meme in this community. Like, oh, you have to win 4 neutral exchange. Like, no, you have to win more than 4 unless you play Ice Climbers.
But like, I definitely
it's encroaching. Yeah,
I don't think
encroaching upon truth is what I'm trying to get at.
But I don't think that. Sorry, go on. Finish your
well, my big point here that I'm trying to get at is that like I think that the probability of winning like 4 majors in a row, it's not like outlandish even if someone rises up, but I think that like just the chance that you'll like randomly lose, like not randomly, but like you'll lose like 16 interactions in a set and drop it. Like I feel like it's so easy to lose to Zane or to lose to Wizrobe now. Like no matter how good you are, and like I feel like it's only a matter of time before like Wizzy beats Mango, just because like Mango like crushes him in the neutral, but like after so many tries, Wizzy just gets like the god run where he gets 4 grabs 3 times and like he wins. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that's so outlandish to say that like the guaranteedness of winning a set of Melee is just getting lower and lower.
So you mentioned Punish Game before.
Especially 4 grabs.
So you mentioned Punish Game beforehand, but I actually think defense and like the way people gain their openings is a bigger and how a single slide off up air by Zane can end Mango stock. I think it's less that everyone's Punish Game has gotten cumulatively that much better. It's more like they found ways to gain openings.
Sure, I think that this is sort of
like I think that's very different from.
I think it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
I think that's sort of a spectrum, like what constitutes defense and what constitutes Punish Game. I feel like those are like not very related, because Punish Game is just what you do with a hit, and like the ability to get hit off of more ridiculous situations isn't really related to Punish Game. It's just like how you get openings and like what becomes real and what becomes not real. So I don't think that those are necessarily mutually exclusive, and I think that we're both sort of agreeing at each other. I think this is just like a philosophical thing. But yeah, I really do feel like there's a lot of players that could win, and I think the players that have like clear weaknesses now are players that are upwardly trending to have those weaknesses not for very much longer. Like I think that Wizrobe is probably on the upswing against players that are on the come down, like Mango. He doesn't have to deal with Armada anymore. I think that Hungrybox returning to the workforce makes him he's more attainable for I think a lot of the younger players. Like I feel like eventually like KJ is going to take a step.
Yeah, he was someone who was.
Yeah, KJ is
I feel like there's a lot of I think there's a lot of like players that could have that sort of performance against HBox, and I think that like it's a matter of time before Zane beats Meech King. Like there's like a lot of little things like this, and I just feel like everyone's weaknesses, like the strong matchups that the strong players have, are just like slowly waning over time. And I feel like eventually it's just going to be very difficult to win multiple majors in a row. Like I think that it's very likely that someone will like ascend and be the clear like top dog. But I think that like it's probably so much easier now, especially because like I thought Armada's ability to beat people that he should be beating all the time, always, was like very phenomenal and like very unparalleled in the similar tier of player that he has. I think Hungrybox was sort of encroaching on it, but like especially after Summit, that just sort of isn't real anymore. And I feel like I don't know. That's sort of what I'm getting at more than anything else.
All right. I think that's a pretty good wrap up of the discussion around Armada. We'll miss you, Armada. Hopefully, best of luck in the future. Thanks for being our best player ever. Pretty dope accomplishment.
When he's an Isabel main in Ultimate.
But what Armada is not the best player ever in is the Melee Stats speed round, which is coming up. So I'm returning this week to.
I'm type of the Armada. I'm kind of the Armada of the speed round.
I don't know. I don't know, dude. You lost a lot. You lost a stock. You're on the
I'm
you're on the
heavily
downside.
positive. I lost it. I was in an Armada situation where I was traveling all day and I was jet lagged. That just makes
Aiden,
me more Armada.
Maybe more than Mango.
Aiden, just so you know, the melee stat speed round. I ask a question. The panel discusses it for a minute, and I give points at the end of each question. And at the end of 5 questions, the winner is the person with the most amount of points.
It's just how you flatter Edwin the most.
No, this is a serious one. No flattery allowed.
What's your favorite thing about my Marth?
I love how I beat Rocky that one time.
There's gonna be one that's just a statement, like I beat Rocky in a friendly.
Just not a question. Just
Yeah, you just have to agree.
Dude, sick.
That's the. All right. Okay, I'll get started. 3, 2, 1, go. By September 18th, 2019, how many more current top 6 players will retire or take a long break from Melee?
6.
That's,
Or I
that's
guess
a sick answer.
4. Whatever number is means all of them.
Top 6 players or top 10 players? Did you say?
Top 6. Count Armada as one of the top 6.
Does PPMB count as top 6?
Yeah.
No, not right now.
2. I think one more top 6 player, and I think it'll probably be Mango will retire by the end of this year.
I think 2, maybe 3. I think a specific multi-character player and Mango. And maybe Leffen if he just gets so sick of it.
Which specific multi-character player?
I think the one that's most likely to go on to play Isabel in Ultimate.
All right, so you're saying 3 people, including Armada. Aiden, you're saying 2 people, including Armada. Wait, do you have a real answer for this or no?
You don't like my answer of all of them? I think everyone's gonna quit Melee by September 18th.
That's bold. I actually think that's not actually as meme of an answer as you might think.
All right,
Melee will just be dead.
All right, I'll give it to Ambi. Does Armada break his retirement to compete at a national or super major in 2019?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Look at that. I think I've already explained that, like, my logic behind his retirement being like more or less permanent. So like I wouldn't see any reason like why he would come back in 2019. Like there's just nothing. Like he feels like he's accomplished what he has, and there's nothing to challenge his legacy. At least not for a very long time.
I think that PPMD will come back for Don't Park 3, and I think that Armada will come to hang out with him because it'll get 2,500 entrants. So I think he'll break it, but it'll be very close to the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a world where Michael and HBox are they're winning every major, they're taking turns, top 2 at every single thing, and Armada realizes that he has the key to beating Puff and has to come back.
All right, I'll give it to Aiden for giving an actual answer.
The rules have changed since I last played.
All right. If the Big 6 were to all retire by the end of 2018, who rises from the ashes to win Genesis 6?
It's Army. 110%. It's Army. There's no other answer to this, and I would like my point right now. Thank you.
I think it's got to be.
All he has to dodge is Fiction. If he can dodge Fiction, it's 3 for Army.
Like,
I think
Lizzie's spread against that tier of players is so good, and when Fiction somehow gets seeded to play Army at Genesis 6 by someone, this like I think he has it. Like his spread is so good.
I think it'd be because I think like by the time Genesis happens, I think he'll be confident enough to overcome Wisdom, and I don't see him losing to like really any other player around like then. Like he would definitely, I think he's definitely would beat Army. Like Fiction and Zane eliminate Army from that tournament.
All right. I'll give it to Aiden for once again giving an actual answer.
Come on.
That was a real answer.
We'd had a real answer. We'd had a real answer.
I gave an answer. I said Wizzy's spread against the second tier of players is so good. I think he can beat Zane. I think he can crush
I can't front.
Fat.
I can't front. I thought you were talking about fiction that whole time.
You kidding me? This game's
I
rigged.
also, if he were willing to come back, I think there's a realistic scenario that Crush would take that.
All right, so
Okay, that's a good answer, actually.
here's another one. Which Fox impacted the metagame
I still
more?
just lost that because you
Yeah.
didn't.
Which Fox impacted? Consider it a punishment on your previous answer.
He's leaving.
Which Fox impacted the metagame more, Armada or Mewtwo King?
Which Fox?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a really interesting. I feel like I'd have to give it to Armada. Just because, like, I think it's probably competitive with how many things that they provided the character. But I think that like the speed at which Armada changed so much about the character is really unique. Really unique. It's unique because a lot of what went into Armada's specific decision to pick Fox for specific matchups was to solve very specific scenarios that he came up with like very, very strong answers for that like literally every Fox player uses now. And I think that like Mewtwo King's influence is a lot more spread out over time. You know, like just like the full hop stuff that he does all the time, like lasers are really, really good. Like all that stuff is like, yeah, I guess like over time, everyone sort of adopted them and they're like sort of basic. But I think that like Armada changed so much so rapidly during a period where people thought that stuff was already getting really optimized, like 2015. Like that's like crazy to me that like so late into the metagame, the character could evolve so much. So I'd probably say Armada.
Aiden?
I think Mewtwo King did, just because the things that Mewtwo King innovated like earlier in the game are more relevant to lower level players and have a larger like spread on the like overall playing field. Whereas like I think a lot of the innovations Armada made are things that are, because they're so specific and they're specific solutions to like high level situations, not a lot of like players are capable of implementing that into their game plan. And because like it had like a large impact on like the top level of play in the past few years, but I think like Mewtwo King's long-term impact on like the average Fox player is probably more pronounced.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd agree.
What do you think?
Please do not even ask the question. I didn't hear the question. I refuse to take
which
part in
Fox
speed
impacted,
round. Please do not say the question. Just give the point out.
All right. I guess Ambi gets it again. So I think it's a tie now between you two. All right. What will be released first, Metagame or the Book of Melee?
Oof. Probably the Book of Melee.
I don't know.
I don't have a lot of like reasons for like saying that, but you already have it up for like pre-order and shit, right? I think that's like pretty dope, and I've seen your work ethic on other projects, and not that like Samux doesn't have like a good work.
Yeah, no, Samux puts a ton of.
But just the like general delays on the project and where it's at. And honestly, like I'm not like a Kickstarter contributor for that. Samux could push that back forever, and I wouldn't complain because of like what he's already done for the community. But
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I definitely think your book will come out first.
I don't know. I definitely think that the amount of time it takes to write or to finish formatting a book is probably a lot less than it takes to do the finishing touches for video editing for a giant documentary. And like I feel like this is kind of a rigged question to shill us for your book. So I don't know. You'll probably give this point to Aiden just because he praised you, but I'm gonna roast you. I definitely think that this question was just a shameless plug with an obvious answer to get us all to say the Book of Melee, so that you could talk about how your book is on the Genesis 5 the Big House 8 compendium, and how everyone should go buy it, and how thank you to all the backers that have already purchased this book. That's what I think this is. I know what you're up to. Take it away, Lee.
I don't even know what the Book of Melee is, so.
Ambi, you actually got it so perfectly, and I have to give you the point there. Congratulations to Ambi for reading my mind and actually saying everything that went into my intent of creating this question. So take it away, Ambi. You get your minute of to say whatever you want.
I don't need a minute. I'm just gonna link this tweet that I made.
Oh no.
It's in the chat. I
saw this.
I was with Vikram and Elpak, and we were talking about charge shot bouncing off of shields.
Dude, what the fuck? I didn't see this yet.
Yeah, no, it's pretty sick. We're talking about
Elpak Liam. By the way?
Liam is Elpak, the sickest Peach player of all time.
He's the most technical Peach to ever do it.
He's actually wild. But yeah, it was really funny because we were talking about what direction you would go if you get hit with something that goes straight up, and I was like, let's make charge shot go straight up. And then I was trying to see what would happen if you power shielded it, and it went straight back down. And I laughed so hard that I like fell out of my chair. I was like, this is the funniest thing that's ever happened. So like, I just tried to keep it bouncing forward and backwards until it ran out, and we got blessed with this wonderful little clip. So I'm glad to have created it. Great.
It's very YCZ like. It takes that kind of a
Leon-esque.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I also have another one. Let me get that real quick.
One?
No, that was a good one also, but we'll save the tweet discussion for another time.
We'll have to link this in the podcast.
Yeah, we were originally going to have a segment about the tweets of the week.
Yeah, when the discussion was going to be like nothing.
Yeah, we had a whole segment planned about like really funny tweets.
Yeah, we were just going to talk about for like an hour about tweets.
This one was YCZ's tweet that he did recently. That this was Wheat's pick for tweet of the week, and it's a very good, very relatable little clip of Melee. And I liked it a lot. It was really great.
The podcast listeners are going to be so annoyed.
Oh yeah, you're right.
They can't see this, but trust us, it's really cool.
It's like I don't know. What's the name of Bowser's down B?
Is it like Bowser?
Wait, didn't you have a list of this?
Maybe?
No, Fortress is up B.
No, Fortress is up B.
Oh, you're right. Bowser Bomb? I don't know.
Bowser Bomb. I like that. Let's go with that. It's Bowser Bomb, Ledge Grab, Tournament winner.
I'm getting the okay from the producer.
Forward smash. And it works against Captain Falcon at 58%. Word. Bowser Bomb it is.
Yeah, it is Bowser Bomb. Good memory.
But yeah, it was a very cool little clip. If you are listening to this on the podcast, when you get home from your drive to work, go to YCZ's Twitter.
From your experience at the gym.
It's true. All of our listeners are hella jacked. Clearly. Fit people in the Melee community.
All right, this is getting out of control. So why don't we talk about something? Why don't we talk about something of note that happened? What?
Edwin, I have an announcement to make before we move on. I just want to. It's not a fun announcement, but it's a necessary one.
Oh boy.
I just want to announce my retirement from Speed Round. I just really haven't been able to find a lot of joy in Speed Round, and these past few Speed Rounds I've just been kind of working through it to no avail. And I'll still play doubles Speed Round in the future. But as for now, I think I'm just gonna have to retire.
Oh fuck! Does this make me the hungry box of Speed Round?
Oh no! Who's your teammate for double Speed Round? That's the real question.
I guess it would have to be my brother, but my brother doesn't play Melee, so I'll pick.
It's perfect.
Baywis is like my little brother.
That's funny.
All right, sorry.
So power rankings. So do you guys want to start by or I guess I'll start by introducing it. So last weekend, New York City and SoCal released new editions of their power rankings. So there's a lot to talk about within those two regions, two of the biggest Melee regions on the in America right now. Why don't we start with New York? The first thing I noticed looking at this PR was the two Long Island people that were not on the previous one, Darktooth and 42nd.
Darktooth, fan of the podcast.
So Darktooth, if you took a look at his summer, it was actually like very consistent, and it kind of slipped under the radar that he beat like KJH, AMSA, like all these other people's, like the losses he had were to like Swedish Delight, Junebug. He lost to Mutaking 3 times, but he finished top 32 at every national he attended in August. And obviously, like, placements don't tell the full story. I would never.
And, yeah, he's beaten some good players and also Chudat.
Yeah, he beat Chudat, who he was very happy about beating. But yeah, Darktooth. I heard the New York guys talk about this on the Power Rankings stream. Darktooth's records in region were also extremely consistent. Like the only like there was one set that he lost in Long Island that qualified as a bad loss, and it was to
like Dr. Lobster or something.
No, it was to an unranked Marth player, and he ended up winning the tournament without like dropping a game through losers bracket. Nice. So definitely a player to look out for. And I mentioned him because he's kind of also within that. He's kind of where Absent Page was last year, of being in the like seeded to play the gods in top 64 of a national kind of tier, which is hard but not impossible to break out of.
Yeah, he's in that fun tier where I think he does really well, and also just like gets to part of the bracket where he loses to really good people, and then people get mad when he's seeded like to be that. Like, people are mad when he's seeded in like the 25 to 32 range, which is fun for anyone who's dealing with seeding. I think he's really good. I think he's just like such a solid player from what I've seen of him, where it's hard for me to really like say, oh, this is the next top 15 player or something. But I definitely think that from what I've seen of him, it wouldn't be nuts for him to be a top 40, 50 player anytime soon.
His buddy or fellow Long Islander 42nd was also ranked pretty highly. He finished 8th, and I know that this ranking period was really good for him because he started winning tournaments in Long Island. Also obviously had that SFAT victory at Super Smash Con. He also it doesn't sound impressive, but beating Chudat like a week or so after taking Hungrybox the last stock is still like, I still think that's really impressive and worth noting as a plus on his resume. I know Chu kind of gets like memed on by a lot of people, but that's still a plus in 42nd's favor, I think.
I do want to talk a little bit about my boy Tyler Auger, aka Lint with a lowercase L.
God.
He definitely had the biggest movement of like anyone.
He went from number 16 to number 9,
which is pretty wild. I definitely think Tyler is super, super good.
He just won a tournament over Slox yesterday.
Yeah, he's been beating Hacks a bunch of times. He's been struggling a little bit in Connecticut locals, but I think his out-of-region performances have been really, really strong. And I'm pretty happy to see him move up. I definitely think that he's had a pretty steady rate of improvement, I feel, over the course of the last couple of years. I don't know. I'm expecting big things from Tyler. Let's go, Lynn.
I mean, he's like one breakout national away. Like, if he gets two big wins, like Tyler's just around, like, in my mind, at least, I process him as like top 100 level, right? Or like at just like
his
borderline.
records are really good. He also he's not positive on Smuckers, but he has as far as I know, but he has a pretty good record with him. He's got some.
Yeah, wins. I thought they were like pretty even.
Yeah, they both go back and forth.
I think, like, just from what off the top of my head, what I think is that Smuckers has he's the slight favorite, but I could be wrong. I definitely know that it's very close.
Smuckers also fell off on this list. He went from number 3 to 7. I guess the Zane wins didn't really carry over into this period. I know he had a lot of like really for his standards, like really wonky local losses. And
shout out to Hi-Fi.
Yeah, that was at a bigger tournament too.
Dude, I want to run back against Hi-Fi so bad. The way I lost to him at DreamHack Atlanta was so aggravating. He arrested me, and he was at like 50. And it was on Battlefield, and it was last stock. I come off the top platform, and I try to laser him, and then up smash. And I had to do a B reverse laser, and I side B. I just die at 0 off the restart. It was last stock as game 3. I was like, oh, it's so awful.
All right, well, let's make it happen, Melee Stats.
Hi-Fi Ambi rematch. Word.
Oh my God.
Another
It's
person
going to
that
be the exhibition at Don't Park on the Grass 2018.
Ambi
Fly me
versus
out for it.
Hive.
You know, it's
Mid-level
fly out.
salty sweet.
Talk a bunch of shit on Twitter, fly yourselves out.
Wait,
Fuck it.
what? I didn't get into Melee to pay for stuff on my own. What the?
Was anyone surprised by IBDW at second? I actually kind of was, because like his record on Rishi is really good as far as I understand.
Yeah, he's just really good.
Yeah,
I think
at Melee.
I think the way that they did this power ranking is, I don't know, the way Tri-State does power ranking is forever a mystery to me, because they always do weird stuff, and a lot of it has to do with like convincing the other panelists that your view is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very, very weird, and I don't really like, but I mean, I guess it's whatever. But I definitely think that they put Rishi at 1, in large part because he beat Mita King and had a really good Evo, which is like a very big and important tournament. I don't know how much I think that would count towards a regional power ranking, but it's each region wants to do it their own way, so that's perfectly fine in my book. But I definitely think that IBW's records are definitely nothing to sneeze at, and he's definitely an extremely, extremely good player.
I think he and Rishi were the clear top 2, but knowing how New York does it, or Tri-State does its panels for the New York City power rankings, it definitely made sense that they were ordered like that.
For some clarity, did Swedish leave Tri-State, or
no? He's in Tri-State, but he's not. But he wasn't.
He's not active locally. I
New York
know
City.
that. But I wasn't sure if he had like moved as well now. But
he's not active.
So.
Like New York City.
To me, like he would be the number 1 on this PR if like you can't, like if just national results were enough to.
Yeah, I guess if you're giving Rishi number 1, and part of the reason is because of a Mewtwo King win, then like
Swedish,
you kind of gotta give props to Swedish then.
Yeah.
Something
I do briefly want to talk about, if we're all okay with me changing topics a little bit, is Smokey Blunt's at 20. Part of me is like, dude, that's so good for Smokey. And part of me is like, dude, Smokey's definitely so much better than that. I think Smokey is such an interesting player because I feel like he'll randomly play like extremely well, and then he'll randomly just get shit on. And I think him being recognized is really good, but I think that he's such a ridiculously volatile player. I mean, he's also hilarious. I don't know if any of you have ever interacted with Smokey.
Yeah, I've had
He's
fun.
a character. Please friend him on Facebook if you haven't already.
I've seen his Facebook posts and comments on enough. Not even from this year, like 2014, 2015 eras. Smokey on Facebook. I've seen enough.
Is maybe in Florida still?
Yeah, he's currently in Florida. I don't really know what he was doing in this ranking.
The activity requirements for this ranking were a little weird, but he fell like 5 spots, which makes sense. Toussaint also went up. That was another thing I had listed down. Number 7 and number 4.
It's not very surprising.
Yeah, I really like the top 5. I think shows the way that the scene is shifting, and also the way that the national scene is shifting as well. Like Aiden's comment that he was surprised by IBDW, but then the data backs it up. I think we see a lot of people who felt the same way when the top 50 came out, and IBDW was, I believe, 32 or 33.
He was below Rishi and Smuckers.
He was above Rishi on the national.
Wait, wasn't he?
Rishi was 36.
Oh yeah, but he was below Smuckers. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Because Smuckers had the Zane wins and the Crush win.
So I think it's really cool because it's the same exact thing where you're like, really, who is this Fox? Why is he so high? And then you look at it, and it's like, oh, like he's actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Fan of the show, by the way, IBDW.
Oh yeah, it's so embarrassing. He introduced himself to me at Shine, and I didn't remember what he looks like.
That's funny.
Really?
He's like, "Oh, I'm IBW." I'm like, "Oh shit,
I have his
you are
burnt into my brain." Okay.
It was so sad because I remember what he looks like, but I just had this like really weird face blind moment when he started talking to me.
How do you guys feel about Hax's chances on this PR? Because he was the number one on the one before this, right? When he was grinding a lot of locals again, and he was doing really well in region. But if Hax comes back at the end of the season, which it looks to me like he might be a little more active than at least he was in the first half of this year, like where do you think he'll end up falling, excluding Swedish?
I literally have no opinion on this.
7 through 11 is my initial impression.
He has to like enter a big tourney or enough significant tourneys for me to
he enters a lot of big tourneys.
He enters a bunch of
he has to play. He has to play at them.
He gets DQ'd at a lot of big tourneys for not showing up.
Yeah, no, Hax has actually been playing and stuff. I've seen him a couple times. He has a bunch of losses to Lynn.
He also lost to Rivers like a month ago or something.
Yeah, that's rough, and I don't think that's really like a big indicator of how he's going to play in the future.
Right.
That's
I just wanted to mention. I
such
literally
a tough set to watch.
I literally just wanted to mention that he lost to Rivers. There's no
he lost to Rivers. Let's keep talking about it. That's a Melee Stats Patreon.
Yeah, it depends on how much you
commentate the set.
Is there any? Oh, well, I guess there's one more thing. Rio Beat fell from number 11 to number 18.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking.
Fat loss, dude.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Yeah, that's kind of rough. For the man who was in every chat of anyone doing their top 100 ballot last year.
Him and Peanut Phobia.
Peanut Phobia. Who else was in? I feel like Legend was always popping in.
Legend 2, Diplomatic 2 can be there.
I guess so. I'm talking about like people who were on the ballot who like kept popping.
Oh, right, yeah.
I just remember I would always see Rio Beat in chat like talking about but whatever. Yeah, 18th is a little rough, but I haven't really seen a lot of his results enough to say whether or not that's good or bad. I'll probably defer to the judgment of the panel.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty unlikely that anything on this list is like super, super outrageous. But tough break.
All right, so why don't we move to the West Coast then and talk about the new SoCal Power Rankings, where we can bring up the Melee Stats, the Melee Stats darling Fiction, and his controversial number 11 finish. Ambi, I can see you rolling your eyes, so I know you got some thoughts on this.
I just briefly want to talk about the difference between seeding and ranking. Because I think that, like, understandably, a lot of people conflate these two a lot, and they're not exactly the same thing. You have to consider that seeding is really important to get the skill level that people are at right now, right? And it's critically important that if you seed a tournament, the player that's like the first seed is the one that is most likely to win. The player that is second is probably the player that's second most likely to win. Whereas the player that should be ranked number 1 is the player that should have had the best season overall. And I think that most of the way that people approach rankings and approach seeding is very different. Because, you know, if you think about like an activity period in a rankings, if you were trying to make it very similar to seeding or like the current skill level of all the competitors, what happens at the beginning of the ranking season is almost entirely worthless to your actual estimation of what's actually happening in this ranking. Whereas it's extremely important, you know, to actually count the tournament in terms of in a rankings, you know, which is more about reflection of who had the best season holistically. And I think that like a lot of what I saw Fiction's concern was about the fact that people use these for seeding, which I think is sort of not correct. Like I think that like a lot of the people in SoCal, they seed based on their opinion of who's going to win, not what the rankings are. And I think that's sort of always been the way that people do seeding. And likewise, there's like concern that like out of region TOs would use this power ranking to do seeding. And I think that it really depends on the level of tournament that you're attending. Like I think that at a national level, I can just like defer to Wheat here. Like Wheat knows all of Fiction's results, I can tell you. And like Fiction will, you know, he won't look at this power ranking and be like, well, Fiction's much worse than all of these players because this power ranking told me so. Like he won't be like that because he knows like all of the records, like, and you know when they were and what times they were, and like what characters everyone was playing. Like they know all that stuff. The people that do the seeding for big events almost always know that stuff. You might run into that problem with like smaller regionals, but I think that like the people that really should be concerned about like the power ranking being incorrect for their seeding, I think the only people that really should worry about that are people like that are mid-level-ish at ranking, you know, like and people that are from regions that no one's ever heard of. You know, like if you're going to a regional and like you're like number 2 in Tennessee, right? Then like the fact that you're number 2 in Tennessee is useful to like, you know, your Kansas local person that's seeding the tournament where he's like, oh, this guy's ranked in Tennessee. Like he's probably pretty good. I'll rank him like around here. But like it's probably going to matter not that much if you're fiction. Like people know who you are.
Yeah.
And
no, I sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off with but I do agree, and I do have a point on this. Is like if you're a complaint, and first up, before I say this, Melee Stats loves fiction. I love fiction. I'm in for the whole package. When he attacks Melee Stats because we were making fun of someone posting some right-wing rhetoric on our site, when he says that we're not letting them explain their stance with enough nuance, I'm all for it. I'm taking the good with the bad. But this is really funny to me because this specific point that he decided to attack, like Ambi said, was like, this will affect my seeding. It's like, dude, what tournaments are you going to where this is going to affect your seeding? When there's 3 types of tournaments that you go to: locals, where like they know you; majors, where like
we know you.
we know you. I like to think that the majors that I work on, I think we do a pretty good job, and I think that the majors that other people work on do good jobs of knowing who you are. And like the only thing that's in the middle are tournaments that fly you out. Like so there's no like weird local or with like regional where you're going and they just don't know you. Like they're paying for your flight, so they probably know that you're good. Like,
dude, I wonder what regional tournament he's going to next.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't.
I think it probably depends on what your definition of regional tournament is.
Yeah, don't undersell yourself.
I wonder what tournament he's going to in the Seattle area next.
Is it something with other people like Fat Goku, Bladewise, Moki, and Cactuar?
Yeah, so for the record, like when it comes to seeding that tournament, I don't give a shit that Fiction is 11 on the SoCal PR. Like, that has nothing to do with how I will seed Fiction at that tournament. And
I think
as far off the top of my head right now, Fiction will be the 1 seed. At that tournament.
Whoa!
Given who's going, yeah. Like
that's completely fair.
Wow.
He's definitely like Infinity in 3 versus Army right now.
Because the next best player is going is Absent Page, and I think there's some ambiguity in how you could see those 2 people. But I'll give the favor to Fiction because he just took a tournament over him.
Man, I love the new.
See, look at that, Fiction. There's no conspiracy against you.
Fiction Absent Page, the new rivalry is amazing.
I love this rivalry. It's so
in-game, good. But then the rivalry extends to Twitter. Not like they're not fighting on Twitter, but it's just like
very different.
They have the 2 best Twitters in the game right now.
Oh my goodness. I love that Fiction discovered Absent Page's Twitter and just started like retweeting all of this shit. So I got all of it. It's so funny to me.
It's so great.
I wonder how much thought Absent Page has given this. Like if he's noticed Fiction attention or whatever. Probably not.
Who knows, dude? That dude doesn't read social media anymore, dude. He quoted John 2 and pieced the fuck out. Definitely a more important retirement than Armada is Absent Page from Twitter.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about Army being officially the number 2 in SoCal, or the number 1 active?
Number 1.
Yeah, basically.
Mango is basically 0. He doesn't attend locals.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is
Mango.
Or Mango. Oh, yeah.
Army is the de facto number 1.
Yeah, I was like,
Mango.
Army goes to tons of locals. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. I've literally never seen Army at a local.
I have to dip for like 1 second.
Yeah, go for it.
Army had a
And I
better
just hate
Smash
that
Con
Park
than
on the
Mango.
Grass is a fucking dumb name. Also, like EGTV. What is it? All about eggs? Egg TV? What are we talking about?
Shouts to Egg Television.
Aiden, Calvin, pick a name, dude. Ah, thank God he's out of here.
What more can we say before he comes back?
Waterfall is kind of an interesting try, and I would still go to it if I get the chance to go to Dump. But it's a little weird. I'm not sure I really like it, but I would still go. And you should still go if you're listening to this. Because
What's your main gripe with Waterfall?
I mean, it's still round robin, right? And I'm not really the biggest fan of round robin. But I don't know. I definitely think that it's really cool that you get to play more. So it'll probably be fun, assuming everyone takes it seriously. I'm just like, from a perspective of someone that like looks at all the numbers after the tournament, it's gonna be really annoying when like people are like, "Oh, I got out," and then just like stop caring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Shouts to NOW at Emerald City for going like 0-8 in his pool,
Yeah.
which allowed him to play in bracket from losers, and he got like third at the tournament.
Was that the one he beat Bladewise at?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the biggest founder of round robin, but it's all good.
All right, so now that Aiden is back, we can pivot the discussion back to Soka power rankings.
Army.
Yeah, back to Army. So
Army is a player that now is going to win majors because of Armada, and I think this is reflected in the PR.
I'm telling you, dude. I should have got the point for that question. It was a real answer.
It's not happening, dude. Like, there's so many Icy Slayer people in bracket that like.
Dude, if Chudat could get ranked 11 in the world, Army can win major. All we need to do is start seeding him like he's a good player, and he'll magically turn into a good player. That's all it takes. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I'm just saying, dude. Like, if maybe not Fiction round 1, but he runs into like Milkman in top 128 or something like.
Yeah, I think Army being number 2 on this PR is like sort of a joke to me. I
don't think it's based on like that they're doing it to grade results.
You just like make the argument because like he beat Mango and he's had like a few standout events. What was the length of this period again? This is since March, right? So
Shine Mango until Shine, I believe.
His list of like lower level losses, if I'm not mistaken, is like relatively long from Oven's like spreadsheet. If I recall, like when I was like looking over.
Yeah, Army has lost. Sure.
So like between that, and like the fact that he plays Ice Climbers, and like also the relatively like good performances of like S2J and SFAT, I don't really understand like to me, Army is like not the second best player in SoCal. And like he's definitely not going to win a major because he plays Ice Climbers. And
yeah, that's the fact that you said like Ambi. What if he runs to Drunk Sloth, dude? Like
that's the thing. He's so shit at the Ditto, dude. He loses to every other dude.
Like Tech Boy, Drunk Sloth. Like, do we think he'll beat Wobbles? No, I think he'll beat Wobbles in the Ditto. But is he going to beat Bananas in the Ditto?
I bet he would lose to Flip. I bet he'd lose.
I bet Bananas would beat him in the Ditto also.
I bet Bananas would definitely beat him.
What about Melee Stats fan Lunar Dusk?
Oh, that's a matchup. I actually really want to see that.
Lunar Dusk versus Army. If it happens,
I can see Lunar Dusk taking that.
It'd be pretty fun.
If he stops playing slots in our fucking Discord for 10 minutes. If he could be bothered to actually play the set instead of
he's addicted. He's gonna drop the Melee, just play slots all day.
Yeah, I don't know, Ada. It seems like what you're saying is based on. It seems like what you're saying is more based off like, oh, I know how this grading process went, and I disagree with it because I don't think Army is because I don't think this is. But like that's not.
Yeah,
the point.
Like I could understand the argument. Like well, it depends on the criteria by which they make this rank, right? And I think like I just have very like different views on like how like rankings should be created than this panel probably did, and also I don't have as good visibility on like local results But yeah, like armies are like if armies win over Mango is like the reason or like one of the main reasons that he is where he is. Like I don't actually like put a lot of value on that. I guess.
I mean, dude, it's not just his win on Mango. It's like the fact, like he has the Axe win. He has the Zane win also. Like his records against people and like
what are his records against like the other people he's ranked above on like the SoCal PR though? And like how do you bring into account all the people he's lost to? Like how do you account for him losing to Drunk Sloth, who like has S2J lost to a Drunk Sloth equivalent recently?
Lost to Michael.
Michael's the closest thing to that.
But like,
that is a good comparison.
I mean, it's all depending on what the individual person or panel. I don't particularly know the exact way that the SoCal panel does it, but it's all just considered. It's all based on what they consider, how to rank it, and I think that's fine. Some people value peaked, and some people value consistency, as we know during the ranking periods where we all have to argue about that. And I think that it's like understandable to see Army that high and to think that he's that good based on the strength of his wins. But I also think it's very understandable to look at his losses and see that as well. So I think you're right, but I also I think that's a very understandable viewpoint. And I think that the rest of the list does kind of focus on that, but like if you're going to put Army at second, I think that the rest of the list changes because you're valuing like good wins a lot. So like having Fiction at 11th is kind of whack if you're going to have Army at second.
Yeah, I don't know if I just like necessarily agree with like the PR, I guess, but
yeah, I mean, I'd have to take a look at the records.
Yeah, it's tough with local PRs because usually the time frame is not something that we like. You just can't go on to anyone's documents that have local head-to-heads and just see like this random 5-month period. It's a lot harder to see exactly what they're seeing, and for that reason, I might be kind of lenient on like really, tearing something to shreds.
Yeah, I definitely think it looks pretty weird. Like a lot of it is just very wacky, just like from looking at it from an outside perspective and having like a vague understanding of how these players perform usually. But like if they had data for it and projected it and they had specific thoughts about where everyone should be, I can't really bring myself to hate on it quite yet, but maybe it would change if I had more insight.
They also, I think, one of the things that you also have to account for is not just records, but it's also overall attendance, right? Like Fiction. If I recall correctly from reading through the SoCal thread and reading what people had to say about it, like Fiction, while he has been a lot more active locally as of lately and later in the ranking period, like I think they wanted to reward the people that went to consistently more throughout.
I hate that. I fucking hate that.
No, but that's fine that you don't like it. But I'm saying that's just like their criteria.
Yeah, not really a fan either, but I could see it happening.
I will say, well, in regards to Army, I really hope this next period, I would just love to see people pick Fox and watch Fiction videos. And I really think Ices is such a fucking bad character.
Lucky is already positive on Army since that time period.
And he was definitely not.
He was struggling for a long time. He was
definitely not positive. Yeah, like getting 3-0'd in several different sets. So like
I hope it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I don't think that's too far off.
We're just gonna put Ambi in a chamber for like two months watching Fiction videos. And
if anyone in SoCal has a job that is accepting people, hit me with the position, and I could fly out in hyperbolic time chamber with my Fiction videos.
I do think something pretty wild when I look at this list is like, and this has been something on my mind when people have discussions about like what the best region is, because I think that's like a really interesting discussion based on like what scenarios you're thinking of and what you actually value in that discussion. Like I love talking about like the skill level of different regions, and this just like emphasizes to me how brutally stacked SoCal is, man. I think it's so amazing that I think everyone in the top 12, except maybe Squid, is like arguably a top 40 player.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and talent level for sure.
Like and that's just like so mind blowing to me how you can have like that much talent in one area. And like if you ever had like a 20v20 crew battle, like who could?
It would not be
beat
close.
SoCal?
No,
Who
they
could
would
possibly beat
destroy
SoCal? Because like even especially if you got like some of the inactives that are capable of being on this PR as well to be on that crew, it would be absolutely brutal. Like no region can compete.
Yeah,
Shout out to
I agree.
Shout out to Didi, the former SoCal Arcadian champ. He made the PR this time at number 19. Good
Let's
Jigglypuff.
go. So I want to go over what we think is the better region between the two regions that just put out their PRs. But I want to do it evaluating which region is a bigger fan of melee stats.
This is New York.
It's gotta be New York,
Easy.
right?
New York by far, dude.
Hey, hold on. So important. Do you subtract for people that dislike members of our group?
That's the point. So I was going to say.
Oh, come on.
All right, this is an interesting question now. I actually like it.
I think number one, you got Rishi, enemy of the show, just because of analog. I think so. I already Tri-State not looking too great.
No, I think Rishi's a fan of us. He wouldn't admit it.
No, he's on analog. He has to be an enemy of the show.
even accounting for that, we have IBDW after that.
Fan
we have Darktooth.
Yeah, but Toussaint, he's possible enemy of the show.
Is he? I feel.
Let's not get into
well,
this
yeah,
first.
let's not get into
He's liked enemy. Yeah. Okay. Let's just say that New York loves us.
Yeah, no, I think it's New York easy. Not close.
Hugs is a fan of the show.
you can't just name people you've talked to and like their
Oh man, did you hear you listened to the last episode, right? Like Wheat's hug story is really
it's
great.
pretty funny.
Story.
That was
so
a great.
That was at a party that all four of us were at.
Oh, I wasn't
How great
there.
is that?
What? This is so dumb because
I was
that
there for this combo. Like
I'm pretty sure you were standing right next to me.
No, I just want to say, while it is a good story, I think it's bullshit that Wheat told it and it was met with just great approval. Because if I told it, people would have questioned my intention.
Yeah, it's because we do things differently. I don't bring up my book.
You leave the book out of this.
I did it because I'm a hilarious man, and I do hilarious things. I don't know.
You're all about. You lost the last two speed. You lost the last two speed rounds. You're on the downtrend. You retired. You're doing doubles now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm not fun anymore. You're right.
Which side does I guess this will go into the stream Q&A. But which side does Slime count for? What do you mean? Which side?
Frenemy of the show.
Yeah, I think Slime has to be an enemy of the show just because he's on a different podcast.
Makes sense.
Is that a rule? What about Chroma? So. Chroma's interesting because he's definitely on
Chroma's
both podcasts.
Chroma's in this like weird.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Double agent.
I'm not allowed to say that I like their show because
I like their show,
but I do like their show.
What about Jack? Jack gives us money and runs another podcast? So it's complicated.
It's complicated. I'm not confident that the money is. I don't know. I think it might be something that will like tear us apart in the end. there might be like $5 a month is like a small price to pay to tear us apart. I think this will come back to bite us.
He's playing the long game.
Yeah. It might cost him like $35, but we'll be done. Oh man, we get a little bit of money and then we just start getting so full of ourselves. The next episode we're just gonna be devoted to talking about how great we are.
When's the gang 8 from Merxus, presumably to Aiden?
The gang 8? Damn.
Gang.
If it keeps going, if it goes at the same rate, then gang 8 would be in fucking 2025.
Whoa, will Armada be there?
Armada grand finals.
Armada's
speed
round.
We're trying to get Gang 2 together, so hopefully that happens.
Hell yeah.
Is Melee Stats getting flown out to it?
Can you cover my train ticket?
Competitive goal.
Can you cover the
Fly out Melee Stats to do nothing.
cover like the 20-minute train ride that I have to take?
I still think Melee Stats panel. That's the dream. After that,
At the Gang.
At the
At the Gang.
We're like,
the same venue and everything.
oh my god,
It's just-
we're like literally like in Sharples downstairs, like at a table, like talking to Swarthmore kids, like, hey guys.
proselytizing or whatever.
The real thing at Melee Stat at Gang, it's not a Melee Stats panel. It's like a Melee Stats drinking game. Like,
Oh, I'm down.
we definitely have to play Flip Cup versus the members of
Save
panel
Melee.
or something.
We should fly out Save Melee. We could get ourselves there.
Yeah,
Fly out Save Melee, and we have a Flip Cup money match.
yeah,
That'd be
man.
great.
So they have 3 members, so we have to contract. We have to get our best 3, which is Save, you.
Yeah,
and
I think Save you and no Fairfax, dude. I bet Fairfax would be sick. Can we fly out Fairfax, our secret weapon?
Fairfax
Shout out to
is
Fairfax.
weapon
All right, hold on. So we got actual questions. So
Yeah,
let's-
from Darktooth, right?
yeah. How do you realistically factor bad losses as compared to peak wins when doing top 50 ranks?
Well,
I feel like you'll have a good.
I mean, I think the beauty of our current top 50 rank or the Melee rank as we know it is panel based. I think that any panel based ranking really does well to factor this, because when you're looking at an algorithm or anything or any one person's ranking, I think you fall into different types of thinking where you might say, okay, like beating a top 10 player is X number of points or something along those lines, and losing to a player who's ranked below you is whatever. And I think by having so many people with so many differing views, and they all kind of even each other out in a way, I definitely think that the current way does pretty good about that. But it does raise an interesting question of, like, is there a point where just a loss doesn't matter no matter how bad they are? Like, there's definitely like the higher a player's rank is that you beat is definitely more important. If you beat Hungrybox, it's definitely more important than beating someone who's 10 ranks below him. But then what's the difference between losing to, like, Reno losing to Mark II and someone losing to, like, someone outside the top 100? Like, just
Zamu
barely
losing to
outside
Cascade.
Let's go, Cascade.
Don't bring up that.
Oh man.
But, like, yeah, what's the difference between someone losing to, like, maybe and then losing to, like, Army lost to maybe, Army lost to OKP? What's the difference, really? So it's hard to really gauge when you get down that low, like, what these bad losses are and how to quantify how bad a loss is. I know this is kind of like not really an answer, but I think just having a bunch of different people who feel pretty differently about it and averaging out all their answers, I don't know, to me seems pretty okay.
Yeah, in general, I think individual sets, people put a lot of stock into them, and like a little too much. Like you have, and this is kind of like the thing when we talked about West Balls earlier in the year. Like you have to keep in mind, like even 2, 3, or like 4 sets are like not as telling of how to evaluate a player as much as like 30 or 35 or more.
Also, like, what if you lose to C15 and then just go on a tear?
Yeah.
Get 9th at a major.
So like
I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else in the panel would disagree with that. That real guy who camps. Question: if HBox sweeps all the fall events this year like he did last year, will that be enough to get number 1, or is Armada going to get it because of the legacy factor and winning 2 majors? If HBox sweeps everything, he's number 1. I would actually count that against Armada. That, like, it's not under HBox's control if Armada doesn't go to the future events and HBox just destroys everyone. I think that's actually a point against Armada and would be in HBox's favor. So yeah, he would be number 1. Easy.
any unannounced EGTV tournaments being thought about, like Flatiron 4? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
No confirmations on Flatiron 4, but there is an assortment of confirmed events for 2019 already that I'm really excited to announce.
It's all Splatoon ones, right?
No, Smash.
Oh!
And what's cool is the two confirmed projects I have right now for early 2019 are both in new areas that we haven't hosted.
Oh, that's exciting.
So I'm super, super pumped for both of those, especially one happening in March.
I'll clear my calendar for March then.
Are you able to? Is there any like cool player going to Don't Park on the Grass that you're able to reveal? Oh, is it open attendee on Smash GG?
Yeah. I mean, like, there's definitely people who have confirmed that haven't registered.
Announce one right here.
But I guess like
no, I'm joking. No pressure.
No. I mean, like, I actually could spill on like some people coming out that maybe like the people listening know like Melee Stats might appreciate more than like the general public. But something I'm really excited about is it looks like we have Australia's like 4 best players coming.
Oh, that's
really
cool.
That's pretty sick.
So that's
Can
really.
you tell them for people in the chat who don't know?
Yeah. So we have Spud coming, who's really fucking good. I plug Spud constantly. Rainbow's the one of like the top 5 that like isn't, unfortunately. And then Sora is the number 2, really good Fox player. Who last time he was in the States he beat like Zio and a rookie, so he's definitely like capable. And then we have ZXV, who is a Sheik player that is quite good, and I guess maybe not currently top 5. It's hard. I don't have like an Aussie rank to reference, but MC, who had a really good performance at BAM this year, and he's a really cool Falco.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's that Falco, right?
Mm-hmm. And then we do have a 5th Australian player that is not confirmed, but we're working on like a funding goal partnered with another tournament to bring them out. So
is this Australian player notable for anything outside of playing Melee, like talking about Melee, or being on a podcast about Melee?
Maybe.
All right.
The goal is to have some interesting cruise, a very interesting cruise tournament at Dome Park, or some interesting cruise exhibition.
That's pretty dope.
So you can count on a couple other unique countries having a full roster at the event.
Is there any chance we could enter Melee Stats into the the conglomerate crew battles?
The new country of Melee Stats.
Yeah, maybe we'll put Melee Stats up against like Austria round 1 or something.
No, dude, Austria has a sick peach. We'll get destroyed. Aries, I wouldn't sleep. Maybe Cardano will come over or whatever. Fly out Cardano.
Well, I have to see Posse. I won't be able to play against him. I'll be staring at him the whole time.
Dude, Posse is low key the most attractive man in Melee.
I enjoyed talking about that with you at
it was
We're
really
not
funny.
going into this.
I want to at least share like a really funny anecdote about like, it's very short. But this is at Air 4. It was after the tournament, like I think it was the last evening of Air, and Phil and I were talking, and Phil told me that like, he thinks like Posy is like super attractive and is like would be attractive to, like older women and younger women, and like he was going on about this. And a year later, we're at a restaurant. I'm eating. I'm with Dilu, BR Talrog, and Reno just looks up from his food and he's, "Do you guys know who I think is really good looking?" And then I was just like, "It's Posy, isn't it?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it's like, literally out of everyone attending, like he's the one man who stands out. So I think funny how many people have recognized Phil as in NorCal. Although that does also sound like something that Superstar Phil.
He's got that like sexy TA look down.
All right, this is getting a little
anyway,
leave him alone.
What? This is nothing but Okay, go.
All right, actual question from Merxist. With the huge scaling back of GTX, do you see it running in the next couple of years? I mean, it's running this year. It depends on how it gets turned out. I don't know.
I mean, they're not doing it in the stadium again this year, so I imagine that saved them at least some money. I have like a relatively good idea of like how much that first event cost in total, and it's absolutely stupid. And I actually don't understand like why on earth you would spend that much money on a Smash tournament in Salt Lake City. And chances are, like, it may. I doubt that GTX will continue to run after 2019. I bet they'll give it one more go with.
Yeah, I mean, like their first tournament seemed to be running on the idea that Smash was the future of esports, and
It's a rough bet.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a shaky foundation.
like it was very well attended by the top players because it had such a large prize pool, and then pretty well attended by some other players because everyone was like, they promised $1 million prize pool if we do well this year. So people were doing dumb stuff like registering and not going.
Yeah,
so,
I do remember that.
Because there was the implication that if it did well, there would be a future of it doing better. And now that we know that that's not true, I don't think that there's any specific pool to go into like a Salt Lake City tournament. I think maybe it'll run where like grand finals might be Fat Goku versus Logos.
That'd be a little rough.
That's the future. That might
don't
be
say that.
Like 2019, 2020.
It's just like I just don't understand like why they're doing it the way they're doing it. What's really frustrating to me as an organizer is seeing them dump a bunch of money into something that is absolutely bound to fail from a monetary standpoint. And you could be putting that money into a tournament experience that is not just better, but more profitable. And it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
Apple Juice is asking, what is your opinion on having to unlock almost every character in Ultimate right before Dome Park on the Grass?
He's asking me and Ambi, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but Aiden actually contracted both me and Wheat to
specifically unlock
we're going to Dome Park and we're being locked in a closet and we can't come out until every character is unlocked and all the
That sounds miserable, dude. Can you imagine? Just
I have to unlock Isabel on 5 more setups and then I can go eat. I'm
slightly different
water.
Slightly different note, but a bunch of the TOs at Apex 2015 had to do this for like the nights before the actual event started. They had to go unlock everything on a setup and then use the memory card for all the other setups and go just like setup to setup to setup to setup to setup in the convention center. None of the TOs like slept that weekend. It was pretty nuts. Just as a side note.
Hashtag read my book.
The actual answer
that wasn't even an intentional shill. That was actually like
as a low key shill. As I know so much about Apex. You want to know more about Apex? Read my book.
It was subconscious. How do we not talk about hot players? I don't want to do this.
Why? We can.
I mean, the actual answer to that first question is like, don't worry about it because like we're paying people for that to happen and using like people in the local community who are going to grind the game all week anyway. And also,
that's so absurd to me. That like or not absurd.
No, but
like their hobby.
Hold on.
Just like
also, Amiibo unlock the characters in the game.
Oh
so
shit!
Between
really?
all the Amiibo that have been released so far, it makes everything.
Damn.
Is there someone whose job in EGTV is just buying Amiibo then?
No.
Damn. They're just my dream job.
Some interesting segue, if brief, out of the talk about Zagetto being hot thing, is that Zagetto went to a local and took a set off of Ambi, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, that happened a bit ago.
Calm down. We're talking about real Melee.
Look, it just talking about people's physical appearances, very personal boundaries kind of thing. I'm always playing it safe.
Zagetto has a really sick fox.
Yeah, I love the
like
fact
him.
that he could come back after such a long period of time, because I do think he was an underrated player in the past and was able to just like show up to a local, take a set off of Amsa, and like I think that's pretty.
Yeah, Zagato is also like a really old school name. You know, he's been around for a while. He's like a top 90-ish player of all time.
Nice.
I think I mentioned him once in the book.
You mentioned his tag switch to Miguel and then quickly switch back to Zagato.
I'm looking for more questions.
That's a good topic in the book is failed tag switches.
Somebody
That'll be a
mentioned
bonus.
Shout out to Tim Tilley, favorite player of all time.
somebody
Oh,
mentioned the NorCal PR.
Tim Tilley's gone from like amazing tags. The Phantom Renegade or Gibson Zero. I don't know which one is worse.
Swift with a squiggle.
What's up? What's up?
Swift with the squiggle at the end of it.
Oh yeah.
John Madden.
Oh, John Madden. Let's go.
Do you guys want to talk about, like Damien suggested, maybe talking about the NorCal PR real?
I think we talked about that, right?
No, we talked about
yeah. NorCal PR. Dilu's not ranked. I definitely think that he didn't deserve to get ranked, but probably will be ranked now that he's playing well.
Who isn't?
Dilu.
Oh yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. I think Dilu's fucking. I know. David is back at it, baby.
Yeah, David was struggling for a while, but I know he just paid. Didn't he place like top 3 at a Made or something? Like he's doing a lot better.
He won one fight over YCZ.
And
our very own
Diskit, yes. Where the picture that they take of all 3 top.
That was a great picture. I love that picture.
It's Dilu, Leon, and then one of them was holding up their phone, and it's a picture of Diskit Boogie at like Big House or something.
Leon is on this ranking because he's the god.
Perpetually on the NorCal PR.
Go Samus player.
Perpetually a god. I think we're kind of burying the lead here, and we're not talking about how PPU is number 1 for the first time in a while.
We're working up to it. We started out with players that aren't ranked.
Okay.
I mean,
now we're on 15.
It's the first time in like a year and a half. That's not.
I was gonna get to Toucan.
It's not that
end of our show.
Yeah, it's like the first time in a year and a half. He was number 1 at the start of 2017, if my memory is correct.
Ja Ryden is on here. He is probably not going to be ranked next season. So I don't think he's coming back.
He's probably not.
Very risky.
I thought that was really interesting, actually. So this is I love seeing lower level European data points in the US because he was like, I think he was like 25th on the EU, which is already pretty dated at this point if you look at like how it falls. But given that he was 25th and he's like number 1 in Switzerland, that he's able to like come to NorCal, get a lot of like interesting, cool wins, went to a shit ton of locals, had a interesting style with Luigi that, you know, he seemed to emphasize like punish game much more.
Yeah, he's really interesting. He's like the only nerdy Luigi player. That's supposed to be a really big compliment. It sounded kind of like a shot, but I promise it wasn't. He actually has like all the little situations really, really figured out. It was really cool to look at. Very interesting.
Oh, yeah. Damien made a good point. So, like, I followed a lot of the NorCal results during this period just because I'd see them on, like, Twitter or Facebook, and I'd click in to see how my boy Ja Ryden was doing. He lost to Umarth every fucking time.
Yeah.
Every fucking time.
When we played, when we were playing at Evo, he kept complaining about Marth the whole time, which is a very normal occurrence, but with him, I especially noticed it more. No, I remember he was talking about how much he didn't like that matchup, and so it makes sense that he would not do well against you, Marth.
That's funny.
One player I kind of am curious to see how he does moving forward is KevBot. I forget which, I think it was the ESA, but I was telling people like, yo, you know, like Moon doesn't, like La Luna typically doesn't do that well on the West Coast. Like KevBot is definitely one of those players I could see like punching way above his perceived skill level and taking
that was
down.
on the podcast.
Was it?
I believe so.
Well, KevBot's sick. I'm very curious to see how like he and Azel do moving forward.
Dude, honestly, when's Emmett getting on this list? I want Emmett on the NorCal PR.
Man, that guy's been
if
around
he
for
switches
so
back
long.
to Doc.
Yeah, if he switches back to Doc.
That guy's been around for so long, dude.
I think actually, like with the NorCal PR, the biggest topic of discussion is kind of the depressing realization that there is so much NorCal talent that is just not on this list because people aren't active. And you could make an argument maybe because like similar to Washington, actually, there's just like not many large tournaments to go to in NorCal, and there's only like weeklies. So the drive for like a lot of the more, I think for players like Cactuar, for example, to actually show up to an event is not really there. And there's like quite a few inactive players in NorCal that would be on this list otherwise. And I think NorCal is still like a very stacked region when you like include all those inactive phases.
Lord on his keyboard.
Keylord.
Keylord. I'm trying to think of it. Lord Cactar. Homemade Waffles doesn't really. He's TOing.
I feel like Waffles is probably.
Waffles was active enough, but didn't make it.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're right. I remember seeing the Facebook post. I saw something. Right.
Because he was spending too much time talking to us nerds on the podcast.
Waffles, Brandon, a big fan of the podcast.
But there are definitely people like Ladandis, Azusa, like Wavebringer.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people.
Rimo wasn't active enough this period. Boulevard, Chris Best, Silent Spectre, like Alan, like so many decent players that could like come and be on this thing that just like are not.
Daryl.
Toph! And Toph is playing again too, so I actually wouldn't be surprised at all if Toph is back.
I saw that he won that one tournament, or I don't know if he won it. He's
going to locals.
He beat YCZ, and that's all that matters.
Oh yeah, Daryl. Daryl's
a
a good
the other
example
really
too.
good peach. Or Wavebringer.
Yeah, it was mentioned.
Fruit Loop.
Is he NorCal still? I thought he moved.
Not about Fruit Loop.
No, Fruit Loop's still in NorCal, I believe. I think it was Soft that moved. Soft left NorCal.
I believe.
Yeah, Cool Kid as well. It's cool.
Oh well.
Where'd everyone go?
Cool Kid. Every time I see Algebra 123230 at a major, he'll always tell me that Cool Kid's playing some friendlies with someone, and he's with like some top 50 player, and he's just like destroying them. And then dude just goes a character that he doesn't go, or he just doesn't show up to bracket. I'm sick of this story of Cool Kid.
Yeah, he's very mysterious.
I'm so sick of it that I also don't want to hear anything about the Cool Kid 93, the Street Fighter player. My apathy extends to any cool kids out there, regardless of game.
Definitely not really the podcast for you if you're a cool kid.
Yeah.
All right. I think unless we have any more questions, that should just about do it for the show, right?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add, really.
Toucan's a fan of the show. That's all I have to add. NorCal PR.
Is this like? I'm not sure. I like this new trend of calling everyone a fan of the podcast.
I like it.
Hey, if they want to get on Twitter and tweet that they're not a fan of the show. Fair enough. If Hungrybox wants to go on Twitter and tweet, "I am not a fan of the Melee Stats podcast," then he is more than welcome to.
Free country. All right, so I want to thank our patrons before we log off. So that's Jackzilla, Stock Money, Singstall, Revenants, the great Rundus, Gerg, and Sika. Those are 7 patrons. You can catch our Patreon link in the description.
Question mark?
I want to look to it.
Potentially you. You guys can also check out some Melee Stats compendium stuff in the Big House 8. That'll also be linked in the description. You can support us as a collective. I know Save has something on the compendium for $80 for a topic for a video of your choice. It's really cool. Save puts a ton of time in this video, so I highly recommend it. I also highly recommend checking out the Book of Melee on the compendium as well. But
got it. Save. Got it. Pull the plug.
I think that does it for the show. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.